Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 21st November 2016. The first article is about disruptive politics. In this article, M.K. Narayan, he talks about how the times are changing now and why Hillary lost the elections, what the Trump's victory to the India-US relations mean. Now, we are in a changing time, or else we are in the complex world today. The complexity is ever increasing in our lives because of the technological change or due to globalization, or by one or the other ways the complexity is increasing. In these fast changing times, a human is unable to comprehend what is happening around him. So we try to take a simplistic construct of these complex things. Let me say it this way. For example, terrorism is growing. We link it to Islam. Or if the terrorism and this globalization, we link it to the loss of jobs. Arab Spring, we link it to the authoritarianism. So we try to define the complex interlinked happenings to simplistic isolated happenings. So it blurs our understanding of the world where we stand today. And the social media, social networks, it has made this much complex. The technological changes are bringing disruption everywhere, economy, social life, etc. They also entered into politics. So, the life is more uncertain now. As the change is becoming too fast, the life and uncertainty about the life, sense of insecurity is bound to increase. And the people are linking this to the politics of the day. So anyone who is seen as a continuum of the politics is rejected. In United States of America, Miss Hillary Clinton is seen as a continuum of those politics, and Mr. Trump is seen as a deviant from the existing situation. So people are hopeful that if the Trump comes up, some change might come in the way. However, if Hillary Clinton wins the election, the existing regime is bound to continue. And even if you see the Brexit, this is what is being explained. In Brexit, complex interlinked economic dependency between the nations is being constructed as a simplistic notion of loss of jobs and identity due to globalization. So the people favored to move out of the Brexit, which has further complicated the things. And in this construct, or in this condition, we need to give a fair opinion of the happenings, and more sharing of the information with people and in clear understandable terms is very critical. And second is Obama administration. President Obama is very clear that he don't want to be the police of the world. He wants to strengthen the United States economy because when he took over the presidency, the situation was very much worse in the United States. US has entered into wars where its economy was bleeding and its treasury was bleeding, especially in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the second thing is the 2008 crisis made the situation much worse for United States of America. So he has strengthened the US economy and also provided for employment generation. On the other hand, there are certain failures which the Americans perceive. During Obama era, according to them, America lost its primacy in the international politics and as supreme power. The Russia and China axis is gaining strength against American-led NATO. And in domestically, the Obama care is seen as a big failure. So in these circumstances, Hillary was caught in between, supporting Obama's policies or opposing the same. But Hillary Clinton being the Secretary of the States in the first term of Obama, so she cannot outrightly support President Obama. And she cannot come out in opposition to President Obama. She has to support the President Obama's policies. So the winds of change, the sense of change which was brought in by Mr. Trump has led to his election victory. And how the India-US relations are going to change. During Obama's era, India-US relations were said to be the defining relations of this century. But however, if you see the Trump, he wanted to be friend with Russia. And the second thing is he is not clear about his policies towards China. But one thing is he is going to be protectionist. So as a protectionist measure, the immigration policies are going to get tighter and the globalization is going to take a back seat which will affect the India service sector. And the second thing is, in South China Sea, our Obama has initiated pivot to Asia, and probably he may roll back the same. So, which may lead to some inconvenience to India and other democracies in part of Asia. So, India has to develop its far reaching strengths with Japan and other countries in Asia. That is what is being suggested by the editorial in Indian Express last week. So, in this context, economically, India may not be supportive or India may not get the necessary support from Mr. Trump. And politically also, the balancing act which has happened with the support of United States till date may not move further. So, in this context, India has to redesign its foreign policy. Getting real on climate change. So, with regard to article, I want to divide the countries into three categories. The first category is the developed countries, which are historically responsible for emissions, and then developing countries, which are historically not responsible but on the higher levels of emissions today, and then underdeveloped countries, small island countries. These are not historically responsible, are not neither responsible today, but they are going to get vulnerable because of the climate change. So these people want a very fast action. At Paris Climate Summit, they asked for limiting the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees C. Now, these people are not ready to take extra responsibility for their historical emissions. Now, in the Paris climate change, all the countries declared their INDCs, and 2 degrees C rise is being kept as the target. And based on the commitments which are realized, from time to time a revision and change in these targets will be undertaken. Now, the President Obama has spearheaded this Paris climate change, but once the Trump comes up, how the things change is the major question. So, these developed countries have to transfer the technology and finances to the developing countries and underdeveloped countries for climate change mitigation and adaptation. So it was promised that from 2020, $100 billion will be supplied. But however, the operational protocols are not being ready, and how this is accounted for is also not been very clear. And in this scenario, the Marrakesh Treaty is about the strengthening or else consolidating the gains of the Paris climate change. But however, there is no strong emphasis from the developed countries, which is worrisome. Rising dollar and falling rupee. So if you take this article, after the Trump has come to power, so there are many reasons for the falling of the value of rupee. The first thing is the protectionist measures which he has promised during the election campaign. It has provided for a new strength to the American economy. And added to that, the tax policy is expected to be beneficial to business and big corporates. He has promised for the reduction of corporate tax rates. So obviously it leads to an encouraging investment environment. And the second thing is the Fed recent announcements. The Fed has announced that it is going to raise the interest rates. Once the interest rates in US are raised, it becomes a destination for a bond market, and most of the investors from developing countries such as India, they move towards the United States to buy the bonds over there. And the third thing is we have a situation in India that is demonetization drive. Because of this, in the short term, the growth is going to get affected, and the lack of availability of the liquidity and also is going to affect the profits of the various companies. So, in these circumstances, the dollar is expected to strengthen again as the rupee. Now, the next perspective page is hitting the refresh button. Now, this article is about FRBM, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. When this act has come up in 2003, the objective is this: by 2008, fiscal deficit shall be constrained or restricted to 3%. Revenue deficit has to be 0%. So, by 2008, the world situation was very much different when it was before. The crisis situation which we were facing then, especially economic crisis, it has made us to revive these targets, postpone these targets. Now, what is the major criticism about FRBM Act? It has the targets which are mentioned, the 3% target, it was not scientific. What happened is The European Union has created this fiscal deficit of 3% target for the new incoming members into the group. So India has just borrowed that rather than looking at the situation here and placed that in our economy. And the second thing is, whenever the policy changes are affecting our environment is affecting the policy changes, we need to have the flexibility in the fiscal policy. Now when the growth is falling and when inflation is low, then obviously fiscal deficit can be relaxed to revive the economy. That situation was there when Raghuram Rajan was the RBI governor. The government stuck itself to the fiscal targets. So, I mean, the maneuverability for the government got restricted to revive it up to revive the growth rate. So, in this context, in 2016 budget, the finance minister has clearly stated that FRBM Act will be revised. So instead of a point that is 3% target, we will go for a range that is 2 to 5%, like that a range will be kept. So the present article talks about this. The range, how far it is benefit, how can it help the economy, or what are the disadvantages. This article supports a point based target rather than a range based target. Because a range based target, it may provide for the flexibility, but also it provides for some intelligent accounting and circumscribing the real intention of the act. So, if we want to get the confidence of the global investors, the strong fundamentals, macro fundamentals are necessary. These are better reflected in a point based FRBM target. So a better rating comes to the Indian bonds. Because of this better rating, our interest rates to the corporates will come down. So the low interest rates will increase our economic productivity. And the second thing is, the rules will be clear. So the targets will be clear because of a point based range. And added to that, because of this point based, whenever the fiscal deficit is high, then government is going to take all the money from the banking system and savings of the people. So obviously, when 10 rupees is available, 8 rupees is taken out by the government. The remaining 2 rupees are available for the private investment. As the fiscal deficit target is around 3, the 7 rupees will be available for the government, private sector now. So this is what is called as the crowding in of capital. Whenever the fiscal deficit targets are high, there will be crowding out of the capital from the private sector. When these targets are reduced, there will be a crowding in of capital towards the private sector, which will ensure the growth. It also says that not just creating the targets for FRBM, an institutional mechanism that is independent, autonomous can be created, which will ensure that these targets are adhered by the government. These are the articles for today. And added to that, there are certain articles which we did not study with the news. One is about railway accident. Here, Anil Kakodkar committee's recommendations try to go through them. And with regard to world page, India and China synergies are being spoken about. The China is a goods manufacturing superpower. India is in the services sector. So there is a synergy, synchronization can be possible between two economies. So they have to work hand in hand. That is what is the suggestion made. Other than that, there are no much important articles today. And thank you very much and all the best.